yesterday's attacks and other things.
Some say that he does have ties to Muslim extremists. I don't know.
In the second week of November, Bolivian President Evo Morales was forced to step down from his post after army generals publicly called for his resignation.
Y luego de analizar la situación conflictiva interna, sugerimos al presidente del Estado que renuncie a su mandato presidencial, permitiendo la pacificación y el mantenimiento de la estabilidad por el bien de nuestra Bolivia.
Under the leadership of Janine Áñez, the new Bolivian government has already begun ruling the country with a rod of iron, using live ammunitions on demonstrators angry over the forceful removal of their president.
En las cosas, todo lo que ha pasado, cómo lo han baleado a los hermanos arteños, a la gente campesina, cómo lo han matado, ahora los demás muertos, lo que han recogido en helicóptero, ¿dónde han llevado?
The bloody scenes of protesters fleeing gunshots and desperately checking dead or dying bodies have shocked the world. Yet they have been downplayed in the mainstream media as a clash between Morales supporters and government forces.
Son muchos los fallecidos. En cada enfrentación hay 20, 30 muertos y la cantidad de muertos no están saliendo a luz. Y bueno, nosotros queremos que haya paz. Por eso hemos venido, no apoyando tampoco a Evo, sino a nuestro país, a nuestra Bolivia querida.
Interestingly enough, the bloodshed has drawn little, if any, response from human rights organizations. As hundreds of casualties were being taken to hospital, Human Rights Watch director Ken Roth supported the crackdown as defending democracy. In fact, both Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International, as two main rights bodies, have failed so far to condemn the new government's repression. The Bolivian self-declared president Janine Áñez has announced that she would take all the required measures to restore peace and order to the country. This includes an official order pre-exonerating all security services from any crimes committed during the transition period. Áñez's order translates to killing with impunity anyone who resists the new government. Meanwhile, Áñez, whose party received 4% of the vote share in October elections, has called the country's indigenous people, almost 90% of the population, satanic, and said they should not live in the cities, but only in the desert or highlands.
Que como pueblos indígenas vamos a seguir luchando porque todos tenemos derechos y nuestro derecho es defender como somos, como pueblos indígenas queremos ser reconocidos, queremos que nos tomen en cuenta.
Lo que nos han amenazado a todos los dirigentes, vamos a agarrar, vamos a matar, eso es lo que han dicho. Pero ahora mi hermano es lo que se han hecho, ha vengado a mi hermano. Todos nosotros como dirigentes no vamos a parar hasta que salga Áñez, tiene que salirse del país. Nosotros vamos a seguir luchando.
Under such circumstances, when human rights are being violated so egregiously, the major rights organizations have failed to react and stand up for the oppressed. Human Rights Watch, for example, has described Áñez's order as just a problematic decree. Having approved of the events, the body's America's director, Jose Miguel Vivanco, has claimed that Morales resigned after 2 weeks of civil unrest and violent clashes, without even mentioning opposition violence against his party or the role of the top brass in his forced resignation. Similarly, Human Rights Watch director Kenneth Roth has described what many experts consider as a military coup as a refreshing step forward for democracy. He tweeted on November 18th, Bolivia's Evo Morales was the casualty of a counter-revolution aimed at defending democracy against electoral fraud and his own illegal candidacy. The army withdrew its support because it was not prepared to fire on people in order to sustain him in power. Roth went on to describe the coup as an uprising for Bolivia, while presenting President Morales as an out-of-touch strong man.
Y el autor intelectual, material y político del golpe de Estado en Bolivia es Donald Trump y es el imperialismo norteamericano. Y Y hoy viene el Partido Obrero, el Pueblo Obrero acá a decir fuera Santi de Bolivia, fuera Santi de América Latina. Ese es el tema fundamental.
That's while the country's first indigenous president, Morales, is widely believed to be a defender of marginalized people and a national hero who improved the lives of the poor. Among his achievements, Morales offered some stability in a country known for its instability. By way of contrast, the Annias administration has already expelled hundreds of Cuban doctors, cut off ties to Venezuela, and pulled Bolivia out of several international and intercontinental organizations and treaties. Human Rights Watch's position on the post-Morales developments in Bolivia is in fact part of its long history of double standards. The organization was originally established in 1978 as Helsinki Watch, an American organization with the specific mission of exposing the crimes of Eastern Bloc countries and monitoring their compliance with the Helsinki Accords. From the outset, Human Rights Watch has been under fire for being an agent of U.S. foreign policy, for hiring former U.S. government officials in key positions, and for its political bias against leftist governments at loggerheads with the United States. By way of illustration, a 2008 report on human rights violations in Venezuela, written by Jose Vivanco, was immediately panned by hundreds of academics and Latin American scholars, claiming the grossly flawed document did not meet even the most minimal standards of scholarship, impartiality, accuracy, or credibility. Interestingly enough, Vivanco once admitted that he wrote the report because he wanted to demonstrate to the world that Venezuela is not a model for anyone. In contrast, the organization was to a great deal silent on the 2009 Honduran coup d'etat that toppled the leftist government of Manuel Zelaya and the ensuing repression just to facilitate the US-backed regime change. Critics like Bernie Sanders' communications director, Keen Bott, say Human Rights Watch's deep ties to U.S. corporate and state sectors should disqualify the institution from any public pretense of independence. The organization's obedience to U.S. policy has also extended to the illegal practice of kidnapping and transporting suspects around the world to be interrogated and tortured in allied countries. In early 2009, when it was reported that the Obama administration was going to keep on the practice, HRW's then Washington advocacy director Tom Malinowski said that under limited circumstances, there is a legitimate place for the practice, adding they want to design a system that doesn't result in people being sent to foreign dungeons to be tortured, but designing that system is going to take some time. The fact is, the body's institutional culture is formed by its leadership's close links to various arms of the U.S. government. In her HRW biography, the former vice chair of HRW's board of directors, Susan Manilow, describes herself as a longtime friend to Bill Clinton and helped manage his campaign finances. Or Bruce Rapp, also on Human Rights Watch's board of directors, writes in his biography that he served as staff assistant to President Richard Nixon from 1969 to 70, the period in which that administration secretly and illegally carpet-bombed Cambodia and Laos. Just like the Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International has long served as a front organization for Western governments. Back in January, Mint Press News revealed one co-founder of the organization, Peter Benenson, was an anti-communist with deep ties to the British Foreign and Colonial Offices, backing the apartheid regime of South Africa at the British government's request. Another co-founder, Louis Kuttner, was an FBI asset who was involved in the government's assassination of Black Panther leader Fred Hampton. As for the Bolivia crisis, while the poor performance of Human Rights Watch and organizations of that ilk may have surprised many around the world, the fact is these organizations have, by and large, done nothing but their essential duty of reinforcing U.S. hegemony by condemning any leftist challengers in places Washington considers its own backyard.